Good morning. This is the daily weather briefing for Monday, March 6, 2017, special severe weather edition, as we're going to take a look at the severe weather potential across the United States today. First thing we're going to take a look at is the current weather conditions, and it's not too hard to see that we have a very strong storm system across the central portion of the United States. Though the northwest will remain cold and wet as weak storm systems move off the Pacific, the main focus will really be across the central portion of the U.S. here. As the southern tier of the United States remains warm, the northeast remains cool with high pressure dominating in that area. Looking at the watch warning map, we do continue to see winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings along the west coast as we have that parade of storm systems continuing pretty much north of San Francisco towards the Canadian border there. South of there, the weather conditions are going to remain pretty clear, although we will have some windy conditions that won't be as bad as it was yesterday. Really, the main crust of the weather is going to be in the central United States, and really it's going to be mostly wind is going to be the factor. We have high wind warnings, high wind watches, wind advisories, fire watches, and red flag advisories, and associated with the dry conditions and a pretty large dry slot with this storm system. Really the extent of the weather conditions, winter weather conditions, extends all the way along the Canadian border here, with winter weather advisories and blizzard warnings just pretty much north of Bismarck. This will be decreasing pretty rapidly later on today as the upper level low and the main storm system moves into Canada later this afternoon and this evening. Looking at the visible satellite, again, we see that dry slot, pretty large area of the dry slot, and a pretty thick band of clouds, mid and low level clouds, over the warm sector where the potential of severe weather could be later on today. And then to the north of that cold front, we see a polar front dipping down into portions of Wyoming and Montana, where we see very strong influx of cold air at the surface, and the blizzard conditions happening around around Bismarck, North Dakota. Looking at the radar for today, and there's not a lot of precipitation showing up on radar. We have some scattered echoes out here across the western portion of the United States with the bands of storm systems that are coming in. They're pretty weak storms, so it's not a lot of precipitation, but they will have phases of precip enhanced today throughout the day. Around Bismarck, North Dakota, we have really kind of an interesting situation. We have showers and thunderstorms to the west of it, or excuse me, to the east of the low pressure system, and a blizzard to the west of it. And then we have along the warm front, we have some scattered showers associated with overrunning effect, and then we have some scattered showers. Not a lot of heavy activity right now in the warm sector. Most of this is virga out here in portions of Iowa and Missouri at this point in time. So let's take a look at our severe weather parameters for today. It's not really a classic setup, although we have a very potent storm system, and I think what the Weather Service has done here is a pretty good job, although I think at this point I would probably extend this enhanced risk a little bit further to the north and maybe chop this off a little bit further south, as I'm seeing more of the parameters showing up in this region here. But we do have an enhanced risk of severe thunderstorms and tornadoes from Columbia, Missouri, all the way down to Fort Smith at this point in time. I think the latest update actually extends this a little bit further to the north, so we'll keep you posted on that as we look. But let's look at the parameters. Again, as I stated earlier, we have a lot of clouds, thick clouds at this point, so it's kind of moderating the temperature. We do see some scattered areas of breaks in the clouds, and we'll have to watch this later on down the road, but this will be a mitigating factor against severe weather if this doesn't clear out later today. Another mitigating factor is the lack of moisture. The deepest of the moisture is pretty much south of the Red River Valley. The moisture here north of that, although dew points are in the upper 50s, the boundary layer is pretty thin. Although out here by Topeka, Kansas, it's a little bit thicker. But really the moisture, we'd like to see these values in the mid 60s. Now we do have a very strong flow off the Gulf of Mexico, and this storm system is still the dynamics, the upper level dynamics and mid-level dynamics are still pretty far out here, so we still have some time for this to increase throughout this day. Because of the lack of moisture and the insulation, the Cape values are pretty low at this point in time. Our Cape values are somewhat high out here around Nebraska, around 600 joules per kilogram. But really the higher values are south of the Red River Valley. But this could be transported towards the north as the low-level jet kicks in and is enhanced by the upper-level jet that comes in a little bit later on this afternoon and this evening. Helicity and shear values are not going to be a factor today. They are sufficient, more than sufficient, in that we have values greater than 250 meters per second. And really, for tornadic activity, it's more than sufficient. We have values above the 400 mark. And this will probably increase throughout the day as the upper level jet and low level jet begin to interact with each other. Looking at the charts, the upper level charts for today or this morning at 12Z, really this is a deepening trough. We have a pretty strong jet coming behind it and to the south of it, so I expected to dig a little bit further to the south, not much more, but a little bit more. And I think the primary is going to be anywhere from Davenport, Iowa, out towards Topeka is really where I think we're going to have the best defluence aloft and the best cyclonic flow in the jet later on this afternoon and this evening. So I think really anything south of that or south of Springfield, Missouri is really not going to be a factor when it comes to severe weather down the road. I think the greater upper level support will be north of Springfield, Missouri. Looking at the mid-levels at 500 millibar, again, that same area I think is going to be the prime spot as we follow the mid-level jet. Will follow into that area, as well as the cold air pool trough will be on the nose of that jet probably in the next 4 to 6 hours here. Now, one thing to note here is we do have a little bit of warming that has to be done, that has to take place, and that might help erode some of those mid-level clouds later on this afternoon, or excuse me, later this morning and into the afternoon. We'll see those temperatures increase at the mid-level, so that'll be somewhat of a cap inversion, or strengthen that cap inversion throughout this day. That will help kind of create more of an explosive atmosphere if it can fire off later this afternoon. Looking at the 700 millibar temperatures and moisture content, the thermal ridge right now is towards the west of where the main axis of the moisture is at this point. That will be translating towards the east later today and will line up pretty nicely. I think we'll have a nice inclusion of both the 700 millibar trough, 700 millibar ridge, and the 500 millibar thermal trough right around the Topeka, Kansas area, Springfield, Missouri area. Looking at the 850 millibar, we have the winds at this level are more than sufficient. They're about 65 knots around Topeka, Kansas. The moisture at this level, again, is not too bad. Again, the more deeper moisture is south of Springfield, Missouri there. So once that translates a little bit more north on the jet, again, we kind of like to see these winds a little bit more out of the southeast, though, or south. They're a little bit more southwesterly. So that could be, again, an inhibiting factor in keeping that moisture a little bit shunted off towards the east of where it would need to be for the enhanced risk. All right, now looking at the 925 millibars, again, the winds here are sufficient. Again, I'd like to see the winds a little bit more out of the south-southeast, but again, the main low is out here in the northern tier of the United States. So, we'll have to watch this area here. Again, the deeper moisture is still, again, south of Little Rock in this area, and we'll need to see this moved a little bit more towards the north to get any kind of surface-based thunderstorm activity. To understand this a little better, we're going to take a look at the skew T-plots here, and right now we're looking at the Illinois, Lawton, Illinois skew T-plot here, and we're not really expecting severe weather out in this area, but just to note, the speed shear and the low-level wind shear, directional shear is not a problem at this area, but we should see maintenance of thunderstorms into this area, though I don't think we'll see quite severe weather because the moisture level is going to be low. We will see maintenance of thunderstorms in that area. Looking at the Topeka, Kansas, and really this is the area where we are most concerned about. We have a very strong capping inversion around 850 millibars, and again, we'll see that probably increase a little bit here at 500 millibars. We have a little bit of a cape value, but nothing much at this point in time. Speed shear and vertical shear, also directional shear is not going to be a problem. The only issue we see at this point is between 750 and 500 millibar levels. We have a little bit of veering of that wind at that level. That could become a factor down the road that could cause some problems with the maintaining the updraft. Winds will be moving, storm systems will be, thunderstorms will be moving very quickly, probably around 40 to 50 to 60 knots. But there could be some problems with maintaining the updrafts. Again, now moisture content wise, again, we're only in the 50s here. Now again, we're looking at the 1200, the 12Z chart here, so this will change down the road. Lapse rates, they're okay. We like to see these above 7, but at this point in time, they'll probably increase as time goes throughout the day. Looking at the Springfield, Missouri plot, again, some chaotic winds here at the mid-levels here, and I think that'll be a problem down the road. We do see nice veering of flow down at the surface, but again, the limiting factor here is our moisture here is quite limited. We like to see these dew points a little bit higher into the 60s to get the surface-based thunderstorm activity. We do have a nice dry punch here above the 700 millibar level, and we do have a capping inversion a little bit above the 850 millibar level. So the conditions are there. Let's put it that way. The conditions are there. They just haven't quite lined up today yet. We'll have to monitor this throughout the day as we go on. Now looking at Little Rock, Arkansas, again, the winds are very chaotic between 700 and 500 millibars. So I think thunderstorms will take place here, but I think maintaining the updrafts above 700 millibars are going to be very difficult, and it's going to cause problems trying to maintain that mid-level mesocyclone that could develop in a thunderstorm to translate downward. Now, the low-level flow is not a problem here, so that might overcompensate for it. But again, the hodograph is kind of wimping out here a little bit, and the wind flow is not as good as it is further to the north here. Lapse rates will probably be sufficient, but they're not the greatest. Now we're looking at the Shreveport, Louisiana, and really this is kind of the lowest point south that I think severe weather could possibly happen. And really, I think anything north of Little Rock could see some severe weather. Anything north of Springfield, Missouri, will have a greater risk for severe weather. But Shreveport goes to show you that there's plenty of moisture here at the lower levels of the atmosphere, but the winds, the speed shear really drops off when you get above 700 millibars at this point in time. So I think really maintaining any kind of longevity in these storms, they'll probably be quick severe weather events, and then the storms will probably die off quite a bit. I don't think there'll be long lasting storms. It'll be interesting though, because we have very strong low level shear here, and we could see some very good conditions that could maybe spin up a tornado down the road. But again, a lot of it's going to be conditional based upon what happens at the mid levels also. And we're also getting further away from the upper dynamics. So talking about the severe weather potential today, again, I think the Weather Service has done a good job with the enhanced risk. I would probably move it a little bit further to the north, shave it off a little bit to the south. Speed shear and directional shear north of Springfield, Missouri will not be a problem. I think that there'll be plenty of that for later today. It is a negative tilt trough, so that's something we did not have with the last severe weather event. So it is a very dynamic system, very large system. We have a very strong upper level jet, mid level jet, and low level jet. The winds at the low level, especially around 850 millibars, I would like to see will probably translate more to the south. The cons for the severe weather, again, is the boundary layer moisture. It's very thin. It's not very high at this point, but again, if we have enough time today to increase those winds at the surface and we get some of those clouds out of there, we could increase those dew points, and that would also translate down to the Cape values. Again, that's all dependent upon the insulation down the road. The Cape is quite weak, but yet again, the thing to maintain is that we do expect the shear to increase as time goes on and the helicity to increase as time goes on. So that may overcompensate the lack of Cape values. Um, so right now we do have kind of an out of sync situation. We do expect it to line up today, and really that's kind of the factor. We have to monitor the conditions throughout the day. As the day goes on and we look at the SKU-T plots probably around midday, we'll have a better idea of what the severe weather potential will be and where it will be and the extent of that. We do expect anything north of Springfield, around the Topeka, Kansas area, between that area and Columbia, Missouri, to have long track storms. If they could become surface based, we could have long track supercells that could develop tornadic activity. So really, we need to be watching the conditions closely, and we need to be aware of what, if you're in those areas, you should be alert to what could possibly happen down the road. Even though it's not all lined up yet, it could be quickly lined up later on this afternoon. So we're going to ask you to stay tuned. We'll keep you updated, and we thank you for watching.